Good morning. Oh, there, I'm not there. Good
Hello,
morning,
Dan.
John.
How's it going?
Good. How is your morning so far?
Not bad. It's a little earlier on your side, I guess, right? Turned up the volume here real quick. Yeah, it's been good. It's got when you do a presentation midday, you kind of have that like the two sides of the day. Try to do some work, but you got this looming, so
Yeah, it's a little bit of a distraction because you want hours in order to make progress, but you're like, oh, I don't want to forget about this because it focuses on me. But
yeah, for
I'm
sure. I mean,
excited.
yeah, the laundry list of to-dos is growing by the week, it seems. So, how are things out your way?
They're not bad. As with everybody, we're just trying to adapt to all the recent changes and
Of course.
shifts in thinking and funding and stuff like that. Has that impacted you much?
Uh, Yes and no. I think the way we financially manage things at Penn State, College of Medicine being considered in a lot of ways a separate institution from University Park, it has significant impacts potentially on our college specifically because of the way the monies flow, basically. Um, and so yeah, I was in meetings with our deans last week trying to get a sense of their prognosis of things. And it really is just a sit and wait, see what happens kind of feeling, you know?
It is, yeah. Maureen and I, who actually the impetus for this program comes from two of our funded grants. One of them is an undergraduate training program,
Oh,
has diversity in the title, of course. So we had to kind of quickly get out some support for this year before we had to renew and I'll be cutting this part off of the talk, but just to make sure that they get supported this year. And so we have to, yeah, just shift
understood.
our way of thinking and interacting. But I want to say, as I was looking at your papers, one thing I really like is that you complete the loop. And I have this cycle in my head from using sensors and imaging and other information sources to kind of assess. And so many groups stop there, and just say, here you are, and you're doomed. But you complete the loop to design interventions, and then you can kind of see what their impact is using those sensing. And I admire that. In fact, I like this new paper that you have. I haven't read it yet on memory training to reduce false memories in older adults.
Oh, so this is a former graduate student. Yeah. So, Indira Attorney, who is actually the director of the Brain Health Initiative at at NIA now.
Wow.
She's Nancy Dennis's former graduate student. I worked closely with her during the course of her dissertation as a brain imaging consultant and the rest. And yeah, she did a great job with that. It was hard because it was a small pilot, very underpowered, but the ideas are similar and run really close to the types of interventions we do, the M Health interventions we do in my lab, where we're aiming to promote self-monitoring as a method of keeping, in our case, behavior change goals. In Nancy Dennis's case, keeping mental representations tidy and retrievable from long-term memory as to reduce those false memories by focusing on unique elements of, stimuli. So I think the example she always used was the two beach balls, blue and white beach ball or one that's blue, white, and yellow. And monitoring the details of the one beach ball to make sure that if you were presented with them again, you'd remember that specific beach ball, not necessarily just the class or category of beach ball, the feeling of having seen a beach ball. So
I'll have to look at that because my mom is 91, and has a lot of memory issues.
mhm.
And it's interesting to see how she combines near term and far
Yeah,
back long term memories into one
yeah,
scenario, painting where she is currently at. So she
yep.
kind of picks and chooses from different points in time and finds a way to paint her current reality with them. And so I'm gonna have to read this paper, to see can.
Yeah, yeah, it's a nice one and very representative of Nancy and Indira's work together. I also the point you make there about the strategies we take on as we age and change. That's what fascinates me is the way we start to navigate these changes every decade. And
Yes.
so that a lot of the work we've been doing has focused on stratified, I mean, of course, full models, including multi-age group interactions and so forth, but really giving credence to how things are in each stage of life. Stratifying analyses focusing on, is this a different phenomenon in older adults as opposed to older adults as opposed to middle age and younger adults, and how do those things change? So, yeah, we do a lot to, I think, deal with and manage all the changes that occur, right?
Well,
Very
I
adaptive.
got mail and I'm going to be monitoring it to make sure everybody gets connected from a colleague of mine in computer science who had some colleagues not part of the university who wanted to attend, but they couldn't be here at this time. Is it okay with you if I record the talk so that they can
Absolutely.
see it later?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thanks.
Um,
Hello, Johnson Tower.
Good morning.
Maureen, I don't know if you have met in some of your professional meetings because she's also working in neuropsychology, and her entire group has a lab meeting right before this. So they'll be joining us from their conference room there in Johnson Tower.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Can
thank
you
you,
hear us
John.
okay over there?
Yeah, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for being here. We're very excited about your presentation. One of my students has been looking at contextual effects on cognitive functioning using EMA. So she's very excited to
That's great.
hear a little bit more about what you're up to. She's not here yet.
Cool. Yeah, my pleasure to be here. The degree of uptake in this ambulatory and EMA-based approach has really, I think, surprised some of us. We knew there's energy and vigor for this type of work, but the collaboration requests, also the availability of some new tools that are out there, like in the market, for example, like the Neuro UX platform and so forth, have really broadened the uptake. And yeah, to hear that graduate students are doing this work is phenomenal, because it was inaccessible at some point 5, 10 years ago, I think, to a lot of people. So
Yeah, I think it's really exciting, and our group has really benefited from being connected with Diane and her group for sure.
awesome.
So we got an early start, I think, on some of it.
That's great.
I can't tell you how much those of us who are in computer science benefit from working with you guys, because when we start out, my area is machine learning, we work with very clean data that are either collected in scripted controlled settings or have been, already cleaned for us. And you can't publish results unless you're getting accuracies in the 95% tile and above. And then we work with you and we collect data in more real world situations, and it all just gets shot. It's
Yeah.
all a
Yeah.
mess. And that's at first really discouraging. And then it's next very inspiring, because you can kind of see the potential for us to be creative in how we overcome one hurdle
Yeah.
after another. And the fact that you are out there in the dirt and the mire working with actual adults that you're trying to help is really neat, and is why we want to work with you to push us to new directions.
That's great. Yeah, the nexus of computer science and cognitive science is what now 25 years ago drove me into this line of work and training. I think then it was, we were gonna figure out how to remodel and recapitulate the human brain in a box. And I don't know how much closer we are to that now. I think in some ways I've gone a long way, but yeah, these were I was inspired also by a friend of mine who went into communication speech disorders, and they are kind of like the ultimate computer science tinkerers when it comes to the interface between cognitive psychology and computers. I mean, his whole lab is transistors and wires. It's such a hilarious place. Um, and yeah, he really pushed me to think very much along the lines of what you're talking about. And I think when spanning the scales from cells and very clean predictive phenomenon all the way out to just regular human behavior, we we span the clean to the dirty all day long. I'll bring some some of that messiness to light in the presentation. Hopefully you'll see.
Oh, good. Good morning,
So,
Christine.
John, my group here in Johnson Tower is made up of graduate students in neuropsychology and undergraduate students who work in our lab.
Awesome.
And we will have, I see some individuals joining from computer science here. And also, let me introduce you to Christine Williams, who's a colleague of mine from Florida Atlantic. We're working together on a project looking at how air quality and social isolation impact cognitive health for individuals living in the Florida Everglades. And I'm glad that you could join us, Christine, and that the link worked for you, okay?
Yes, glad to be here.
Should I meet you, Christine?
I'm getting mail from that the Zoom is not working and it worked clearly for others. So let me try to address this and then I will start us up. How's that? Oh, some people are saying that the link worked just fine. I don't know. Okay, well, I sent them a link again. Hopefully that will help. So we can go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us today and help me in welcoming our speaker, Dr. Jonathan Hakun from Penn State. He's the director of the Cognitive and Mobile Phenotyping Neurolaboratory at Penn State College of Medicine. He has done prior research on looking at multimodal brain imaging and also monitoring cognitive change and variation to develop new approaches for promoting brain health. And I encourage you to take a look at his publications because he is looking at a variety of techniques and technologies for not only assessing, but also intervening and promoting and encouraging brain health, completing the cycle, as I like to call it. So thank you for talking to us today about your work, and I will turn it over to you, Dr. Hakun.
Cool, my pleasure. All right, let me see. Let me get the correct screen up in the right location. Then screen share. This is always a dance every time, right? All right, I think we got the right one. Now I have you, I think, in an appropriate place where I can see you all. Are you seeing the title slide?
That looks good.
Rock and roll. Well, thanks again. I know when Diane initially connected with me, I'd asked kind of what the interest in the makeup of the group was. And so I prepared a presentation that, for the most part, focuses on the work we've done developing and validating the instruments that we use. And then I've held off a section at the end, if there is time, and I'll keep aware of that time, to go into some of the ways we apply this work and these tools on the intervention end and the rest. So hopefully we'll move along efficiently here. There we go. All right, so as I mentioned, we call our lab the Cognitive and Mobile Phenotyping Neurolab, or CAMP Neurolab for short. If we had to have a lab slogan, it would be promoting cognitive and brain health throughout the lifespan. We use a wide range of different modalities and methodologies, including borrowing from areas of cognitive neuroscience, which is my background and training. Ambulatory assessments, in particular, we do a lot of work with EMA and ambulatory cognitive assessment. We also incorporate the use of wearables to do some objective monitoring as well as some intervening. And we've brought into our work a lot of mHealth intervention tools to do some fun kind of experiments to ask questions about our theories at a level that we're not able to do just through observational work. Most of the presentation today, as I mentioned, I'll talk a lot about our ambulatory assessment program, the instrument development we've done over the past 10 years with our large team here at Penn State. And then if there's time allows, I'll talk a little bit more about how we incorporate the wearables and the mHealth intervention pieces. So why mobile assessment? There are some obvious reasons we can reach people. That's among the most important. Also, by assessing out in the real world and real everyday life, we increase this ecological validity of the methodology and the data that comes back. But I think what I'm most interested in focused on these days has been the capability that smartphone-based assessment provides for us for doing higher frequency assessments. These higher frequency assessments give us the ability to boost the reliability and precision, look at short-term variability at multiple timescales, and also I think exposes some new features.
Oh, are
They're
you
very,
frozen?
very patiently waiting for.
Oh, bummer. If you want to type it into chat, Naomi, I can ask it on your behalf, or you can send me email. Larry, you also had a question?
Yeah, a couple of questions. First of all, thanks for the presentation. I realize we have a lot more analysis we can do with the data we have. But I got two questions. One is the initial part of your talk was focusing on the response time. I think that same task of matching would also have an accuracy component, and then of course the dot position that you used for the kind of cognitive fog test is accuracy based. So do the all of those analyses you did, does the accuracy measurement align with those same results, or do you get a different trend?
Yes, it does. The only conflation is that some of the tasks we use where accuracy is primary outcome, they may be more complex. And in being more complex, you see more protracted learning curves that take a while to get to asymptote. So many of them, when we ran them for shorter amounts of time, look very linear and not exponential. And I remember debating this out with our team, and I was saying, one person said, no, keep going. I guarantee you they're exponential. There's a law of human performance. What people are getting in the hands there. Our tasks don't involve forms that repeat over time, right? So like the typical retest gains, you think about people are memorizing the stimuli or the story, and they're recalling, years of exposure. In this case, we randomize everything. It changes every time. And it turns out that if you do go farther with the more difficult tasks, you do see that exponential roll off. What certainly does occur in error rates, or in that visual spatial task, the grid memory task, that's published already. It's a Euclidean distance measure, and that adheres to the exponential form. I showed two examples: multiple object tracking, which is just pure accuracy for how many you've gotten right over 4 trials. And that shows an exponential effect. We see the same thing with complex span tasks. I didn't expect to see that at all. The complex span tests of the rotation span task in particular, a lot of data on almost everybody shows the exponential curve by about the second week in our 14-day study. And then finally, some of the more quirky measures like false alarms in a go-no-go paradigm, or what's the other one? The corrected recognition rate in a change detection paradigm. The shape and form looks different because the resolution of each individual episode might not be so clear. In other words, what's a commission error in 20 trials of go no go? If you're looking at just plotting commission errors, you may see a sparse kind of almost like a ordinal distribution. But what happens is you do see that distribution shrink and shrink and shrink to where people seem to be better and better over time as well. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, but it doesn't seem to be tied to response times or speeded responding.
Yeah, thank you. My second question, you talked about context, and I think you're using kind of a step counter to at least identify a physical activity context before they do a test. We collect data from smartwatches, but we collect, all of it: accelerometer, gyroscope, heart rate. Do you think that information would at least serve as a surrogate of context, maybe even a better context than a step counter?
Absolutely. Yeah, I haven't gone much farther than sleep data from smartwatches and physical activity data. But there's the heart rate variability components. There are all the different things that those smartwatches classify now. I would be very interested. There was a recent, the Apple Biogen collaboration paper came out recently, and they kind of were rubbing up against that. My understanding is they may not go much farther, but their initial goal was to try to crosswalk all the features of the smartwatch device characteristics, all the continuous data streams, and see if they can map those onto, mostly, I think, classifying individuals as more or less at risk for impairments. But I think a lot of us have goals of pulling more out of the smart devices, aligning those time series. As you're probably well aware, the hardest part is figuring out what the right window is. You have to aggregate that data somewhere, or dissolve that continuous data to something to predict the cognition from. I think that therein lies the biggest challenge as far as we see it.
All right, great. Thank you.
Christine, I see you have your hand raised. Did you want to ask a question?
Oh, I was just,
Oh, I'm sorry, Christine. I meant,
Sending-
there's another Christine online.
okay, okay.
Sorry about that, Christine. So,
Naomi put her question in the chat, so maybe if you want to address her question first, since she was before me.
Yeah.
My internet is in and out, so I'm listening.
So you're asking about your cognitive EMA focused on glucose cognition, people with type 1 diabetes, curious as to how to deal with the circular cause effects where the context impacts cognition and the cognition impacts self-management. Yeah.
So like with your exercise showing that cognition was better, but then when cognition is better, you're more likely to exercise. Because we see the same thing with glucose and blood sugar management, where you're slower when it's bad.
Yet if you look at large means work, you're in an even more difficult situation because it's not just one side of the excursion, right? Her work seems to say there's
She's my co-PI on this. So
that's it. Okay, great. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't recognize that, but yeah, it's yeah. So the circular effects. I mean, there are these statistical answers, right? I think a lot of people do these kind of vector autoregressive models where they're basically running these two chases in time and looking at cross-lag effects. But in the big challenge with all this is really getting a handle, having to move to something of a Bayesian approach, getting a handle all the random effects, because you might find that there may be reciprocal or cross-lagged effects. However, if we're using a frequentist approach, we run out of the ability to estimate all the possibilities of differences between individuals and wherever they lie. I think this is where Zita has been like just a godsend for our work. She's really helped us unlock some of this. Statistically, that's one side. Then the other side about the circularity, I think this is where the mHealth stuff comes in. And we can start to experiment to make stronger causal predictions. That's the first time I've done that with the physical activity piece. Have you all thought about intervening to see if you can move the needle?
yeah, I mean, one of the things that we found was blood glucose variation was associated with cognition. And so there are treatment devices, so automated insulin delivery, where it can reduce the variation in glucose over time. And so then looking at, do we see less sort of coupling of glucose and cognition after their variation is otherwise reduced? So kind of adding in an intervention that doesn't have anything to do with cognition potentially. But yeah, and then the time frame has also been an issue for us, which I imagine it would be for exercise also, where another group that's doing similar stuff has looked at, time windows, different time windows before and then cognition later, and looking both directions, and it's looking just really complicated. And so it's like cognition or glucose 2 hours before impacts your cognition favorably. But like it's bad if it's within a shorter window, and you can't look at every possible time horizon.
Absolutely. I think some of the earliest work looking at device-based physical activity measurement and EMA outcomes was done in the quant dev group here at Penn State. They did this windowing approach where they expanded and shrunk the windows. And when I go to my grad student is in epidemiology, and some of the biostatisticians in the program, like the first thing they want to run to is let's do distributed lagged analyses, but it's so weird that the contexts that lead up to the performance actually seem to kind of collide in with one another, and I find it so hard to pull anything out in the windowing approach from 2 hours ago when there's such autocorrelation on the context leading up to the behavior or the outcome we're interested in. So I think change of design and method may be a stronger answer again, the intervention-based approach, and I've heard people say, interventions are not experiments, but at the same time, we're trying to get at the degree of causality by throwing the lever. So I think, yeah, it's we're all in that difficult space together here. Christine, so I feel bad. That hand, your arm must be tired.
That was an amazing talk. Thank you so much for, giving it. And I'm a sleep psychologist and sleep researcher. And so like I have questions that are kind of like specific to the things that I'm interested in. And I see that Anne Marie was a collaborator on your IMACES study. So I'm sure she's got it all covered. But I was curious as to whether how sleep patterns or variability in sleep might affect some of the cognitive performance results that you've seen in your cancer patients, and especially with regards to the potential, the initial subjective objective discrepancy that you might have seen that, is then better teased out when you look at more nuanced approaches. But yeah, I'm just curious about if you have any input on that.
Yeah. I can tell you what we have, and I can tell you what we haven't done. So what we have is actigraphy-based sleep monitoring for all those patients throughout the whole study. What we don't have is the full complete analysis of all those factors in one place. So we have a protocol paper we put out. I have this leading cognitive outcome that we're preparing to submit. The deeper dive involves going into the device-based standard. What we do is preliminarily, on the physical activity side, the daytime actigraphy, we found that patients who were on average more active at baseline had better cognitive outcomes down the line, fewer impairments, and better cognitive trajectory. With regards to sleep, I don't have that in the breast cancer study, in the AMACES study. We do have it in the Einstein study, and there's a paper under review right now at Sleep Health, where, surprise, surprise, the main place that it makes contact with is sleep disturbances and measures of WASO and other things predict processing speed differences in older adults after waking. And so there is this direct connection between sleep quality disturbances and restorativeness that transmits into cognitive performance the next day, but not so much the other measures. And I think I've been describing, when I had to talk with people about that light intensity physical activity 4-year effect, people were asking a lot of questions like, I had to help characterize like what they wanted, a biological mechanism. And I think I'm more quick to go to more of a more basic arousal-based explanation, that being physically active rouses the systems. There may be a neurotransmitter mediator there, but it's more or less just a readiness to perform that shows up in processing speed that may not show up or make as big an impact on something like working memory attention. Similarly, with the sleep data, I feel like that's probably the best explanation, a short time scale, is that the restorativeness of sleep, the job that it does for you. We haven't done like the associative long-term memory things yet, which would be a great place to go for sleep, looking at consolidation, looking at the ability to recall things you learned yesterday. But with respect to the more fast time scale stuff, processing speed, short working memory paradigms, it makes sense that the good night's sleep would put you in a better position to respond to the problem solving that those paradigms ask for. So yeah, I'm sorry I can't speak to it yet on the breast cancer space, but we can triangulate some of these things.
Got it. Thank you. And my second question, I was really interested in the cognitive fatigue clinical profile stuff that you did, and because another area that I'm really interested in is teasing apart the difference between fatigue and sleepiness. And so I was just curious, methodologically, how do you characterize or make the determination that somebody is like cognitively fatigued? Is it like through an interview or a survey?
So this UPMC model for concussion rehab is a comprehensive 2-hour-long, put everybody through everything kind of protocol. They do performance-based neurocognitive assessment, comprehensive ascertain of things like symptoms, experiences in their everyday life just from interview. They have a vestibular ocular motor screening, which is performance-based. They put people on balance pads. They ask people to do pursuit with their eyes and convergence, all the various things you think might be useful. They go through this whole litany of things, and then they often are some of the impairments that are easier to detect are like vestibular impairments. when somebody starts to get nauseous after being in the VOMS, which is actually what the acronym is, they easily can ascertain a vestibular impairment, ocular motor impairments, the lack of near point convergence and things like that. The cognitive fatigue profile, I think it's in this case, the way you ask the question makes me think it's maybe unfortunately named. And I don't think they scrutinized it. I don't think fatigue is per se necessary. It's descriptive though of this pattern where these symptoms at rest may be there, when active may be there, but they show this crazy time of day effect where they run out of rope in the afternoon every day. And so the main thing they overlay in their process of adjudicating these profiles is that piece, is whether or not they bonk by the end of the day. And the interesting wrinkle is that group is a little more at risk for protracted recovery. And what we think, the conversation around these circles, is that possibly what's going on there is that whatever brain injury, whatever has directly happened diffusely to their brain, it can't handle and deal with the multisensory inputs that occur over the course of the day in busy environments. It's just not ready and prepared to handle all that. And so different from another patient where symptoms may just fluctuate, they accumulate in these people and they need the restorativeness of sleep to come back. Don't know if it's just circadian. It does seem to be exposure based. So it's a fascinating profile. And that, I would say that rehab is, the science has come a long way, but it is still the art of rehabbing and caretaking for patients with concussion. And a lot of that is in the eye of the clinician beholder, you know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to be sensitive to your time, Jonathan. You've already given us so much of that, and thank you. But Maureen, you did mention that your student might have a question. I want to make sure to allow for that. However, Johnson Tower's on mute.
She said she'll email the question.
Okay, all right, very good. Yeah, we'll follow up with more discussion, I'm sure, because this was really informative, very exciting work. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invite. I appreciate it.
All right, we will sign off for now and talk.
Take care.